welcome to this program on Family Matters. We are very glad that you tuned in today. Today we have a great topic for you. We come from different families with different values. But when we get married, we have to live with each other with different set of values. These values clash and we need to prioritize. So let's talk about that today. To talk about that, we have Mrs. Beulah Joseph and Reverend Joseph here. They have been married for the past 39 years. They've been in the ministry from a very young age. We are glad that you are here, Beulah and Pastor. So glad to have you. You have a very busy schedule, but you have spared your time to come and talk to our viewers. So glad to have you. Thank you for being here. And today's topic, as I said, is about values and priorities.
Okay.
Now, when we come from different families, there's always a clash and a strife depending on our values and how we prioritize them. So, what do you think should be given the most important priority?
First of all, we thank God for giving us this opportunity and thank you for inviting us. We are so glad to talk about this family. Yes, family matters, that we know, because God started the family first. After the creation of the universe, He started the family. So family is very, very important. And as far as the two different culture and two different kinds of families coming together and to live as husband and wife, there will be clashes, there will be many problems to start with. We are living together for 39 years. And I think still we are learning to understand each other. That is how family goes. So, what I learnt is trying to change another person is impossible. Not only within the family, even with our friends and other people. Changing others is not our job and we cannot change them. So, what I learned from my childhood and through my family life, that I have to change myself as a Christian woman and as a believer. I have to change myself according to the Word of God, so that I can cope up and I can go along with the other person peacefully. Yes. In spite of many difference of opinions and so many other things coming in between, God helps us and Holy Spirit within us helps us. That is how we have come so far, peacefully, and we are happy to be a witness for God in this matter.
So, what have been your priorities in your family life? Whether family was important for you or ministry, because you are involved in ministry and in the family. So, how did you manage it? How did you prioritize it?
Yes, priorities, talking about priorities, we always tell people God is our first priority. Like we give place to God first. In our life, God is first, then family, then only the ministry. That is how we prioritized in our life, and that is how we are doing it.
I go along with that because without God we can do nothing. Jesus said, without me you can do nothing apart from me. So sure, because when He becomes the head of your life, then we are commanded by the head to do what to do in the family. So the instruction comes from there.
Yes.
So we have to prioritize. Like first, number one is God, and then whatever that you do, like ministry or secular job or whatever it is. But as long as you focus on God, everything will become all right. We'll have problem, but because of Him, we can be an overcomer.
Yes.
We can really be victorious in our family life. So I believe that number one, we have to give importance to God. And then number two is family. Because there are some people devoted themselves to God totally. They've forgotten the family. Because my wife knows better than me because she come from the minister's family.
Yes.
Right from the generation there, Archie, from those days. So I think God is number one, then your family.
What was your experience in your family with your parents? Because they were also doing ministry. So what was your priority and how you changed it to the present one?
Yeah, talking about my family, I have to say we are born Pentecostals from a strong family. Do you know how about born Pentecostal? We were born in the home, not even in the hospital. That's how we were brought up. So, and we were always brought up in a church. We know only church from our childhood. All our play items also church ministry, singing and witnessing and preaching. That's how we played. So, from that kind of family, and I know my father was a pastor, and most of my childhood, what I missed the most is we've never seen our father.
Yeah.
When we get up, he's already gone to minister other families, to pray for others, sick people and all that. My father was also working in a government office. So after that, he'll come home. Before he comes home, we'll go to school. Then he gets ready, he'll go to the office. Straight from the office, most of the days, he'll go for other meetings. Every day he'll go for evangelical meetings or some Bible studies, some church meetings. So that's how the days went by. And as a small child, I was not happy with that. I missed my father, so I always told my father, I don't want to marry a pastor.
But finally.
Yeah. But God did it in the other way, Sometimes we have our own way, just like Jonah. Yes. He was asked to go to Nineveh, but he went to Tarshish, but God just left him. He could have stopped.
Yes.
He could have stopped. When he bought a ticket to Tarshish, he could have stopped, but he didn't do. He just left him to go on his way, to suffer, then come back, then back to do God's will. So like that in my family life, I want a man who works and who can take care of the family, who can take care of me. Then my father said, okay. So it worked that way. He was working in Port Trust and we got married, and God fulfilled my desire.
Yes.
Then slowly he brought us back to the ministry because he already trained me to do his work. Yeah. And I know God's call, but I still wanted to go away. But I'm glad that God brought us back together, and so that we can be a blessing to many families.
Yes. So we prioritize with God as our first, giving God the first place, then giving family relationship and building life together the second place, and thirdly comes the ministry. Even if we make any mistakes, it's okay, because God is there to bring us back into His will and into His kingdom and to fulfill His purpose in our lives. In today's episode, we are going to hear how to build our relationship together. Husband and wife are brought up in different homes. They have different cultural backgrounds. They have different emotional build-up in their families. So when they come together, it is important that we try to understand the other person very clearly. Understanding the spouse will help us to grow in our relationship. To understand the other person as we are communicating with each other, we need always to listen to what they are saying. Not only listen to the words, but to the body language and also the tone that they use. We need to come always into the family to have a common value system. Each family has a value system. When two people come together from different families, they will have different value systems. When we are building a new relationship together, we cannot expect to have two value systems it cannot go together in any family. So always come to a conclusion or come to a common value system so that there will be peace in the family. Supposing each person thinks that the value that they have is the best, we need to go back to the Bible and check what the Bible says. Always a family is built on biblical values. If both values are biblical, then the next step is to prioritize according to the time and the situation. Whatever we are going through, we must always listen, we must always think and find out what is the priority now. Whose value is priority? So you have to always have a common value system or be able to prioritize the values that are biblical. Always when we look at these things, when we look at the communication, the emotional outpouring and all these things, we should always try to understand that the other person has a different emotional setup. Usually the wife is more emotional than the husband. So the husband has to understand that women are, or his wife is an emotional being, and so we should learn how to console or comfort or respect the emotions that the other person has. Understanding the thought pattern, understanding the preferences, understanding the habits, understanding the reactions to the different situations is very important. For example, if we read in the Bible, in 1 Samuel chapter 1, we have a very understanding husband here. His name is Elkanah. 1 Samuel chapter 1, reading from verse 7 onwards. This went on year after year. Whenever Hannah went up to the house of the Lord, her rival provoked her till she wept and would not eat. Elkanah, her husband, would say to her, "Hannah, why are you weeping? Why don't you eat? Why are you downhearted? Don't I mean more to you than 10 sons?" See, here is a situation where Hannah is being provoked by the concubine, and here she is in tears. And the husband knows why Hannah is in tears. She is being provoked because she is in tears because she does not have a child. Because she does not have a child, she is hurting. And the husband knows very well that the wife Hannah is going through this stressful situation. And see the way how he handles her emotions. He does not say, "Why do you always keep crying? Why even in this place where we have come all the way from just for an outing to worship the Lord, you keep crying?" He did not snub her like that. He says he knows the reason, but he tries to show her that he loves her and he wants to understand her. He says, "Why are you crying, Hannah?" Do you think he knows why she's crying or not? He surely knows why she is crying. But he says, "Why are you crying, Hannah?" So that word will soothe the emotions of Hannah. And next he says, you don't have to, "I love you, I honor you." If you read in that verse, "Why are you downhearted? Why don't you eat? These are some of the things that any wife will expect from a husband when she is downhearted, when she is crying because of the common problem that they have. The husband did not say, even I have the same problem with you, but I am not crying. He never said that. He said, why are you crying? Why don't you eat? Why are you downhearted? What a word of comfort to the wife there. So we must learn from the Bible how to deal with such emotional outbreaks. So in this we find that Elkanah is trying to soothe the emotions of Hannah. But even then, Hannah now concentrates on going to the presence of the Lord and receiving the miracle from him. That made her think, what else can I do so that I can receive a miracle? So it is on the part of the husband or the wife, when one person is downhearted, the other person should understand and talk so soothingly that they will be able to think what else to do next, instead of being frozen and becoming stressed. So this is how the husband and wife should deal with each other's emotional outbreaks. In the life of Abigail, we find that how a woman is able to understand the heart of a man. In 1 Samuel chapter 25, we come across this woman, Abigail. She is the wife of Nabal, and Nabal was a wicked man. And as you all know this incident, I'll just say it in short. David was going around in the wilderness. When David and his men were going around in the wilderness, Nabal's men used to bring the sheep, and David and his men would guard the sheep of Nabal's men. But when one time when David heard that Nabal was there shearing his sheep, he sent his men to bring some food for himself. But when he sent the men, they went there and they spoke to him, and Nabal was such a wicked man, he was a drunkard, that he rudely said, I will not give the food to David. So David's men go back to David to describe to him what happened here. But at the same time, one servant from Nabal's shepherds, they go to Abigail, his wife, and they talk to her from verses 14 onwards. Shall we read it? 1 Samuel 25 and verse 14 onwards. One of the servants told Nabal's wife Abigail, David sent messengers from the desert to give our master his greetings, but he hurled insults at them. Yet these men were very good to us. They did not mistreat us, and the whole time we were out in the fields near them, nothing was missing. Night and day there were a wall around us all the time we were herding our sheep near them. Now think it over and see what you can do, because disaster is hanging over our master and his whole household. He is such a wicked man that no one can talk to him. Abigail lost no time. She took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 dressed sheep, 5 seah of roasted grain, 100 cakes of raisins, and 200 cakes of pressed figs, and loaded them on donkeys. Then she told her servants, Go on ahead, I'll follow you. But she did not tell her husband Nabal. Now let's understand this portion. Here, David is coming back because of the bad news from Nabal. David is coming back to kill the whole household of Nabal. So when he was coming back that way, Abigail hears that he had treated the sheep and the servants well. So she realizes, she acts wisely and prudently here. She understands the heart of David. She knows that David was coming to kill them because he had done them good, and he was receiving something bad. in the further verses we read, as she came riding her donkey into a mountain ravine, there were David and his men descending toward her, and she met them. David had just said, "It's been useless, all my watching over this fellow's property in the desert, so that nothing of his was missing. He has paid me back evil for good." So what was in David's heart? David knew that Nabal is paying him evil for the good that he has done. And Abigail understood that that her husband was paying evil for the good that David had done him, and so she rushes to David. And when she goes to David, she does not go as a big landlord's wife or as a person who has a lot of property. We know David's position here. He was wandering around in the wilderness. He did not have fame, he did not have a name, he was not a king yet, but still she understood the heart of David. Even though he did not have any status, she goes to him, and when she goes to him, we read in verse 23, when Abigail saw David, she quickly got off her donkey and bowed down before David with her face to the ground. See how humble she is when she goes to meet David. So this we know, from this we understand this woman Abigail was not only a beautiful woman, she was very wise and prudent, and she tried to save her property and her household, her servants and her shepherds, her servants and her sheep. So here, this is how every woman in a family or every man in a family should behave. We have found that Elkanah was a man who understood the heart of Hannah. Here we find this woman Abigail able to understand and act prudently and wisely so that a big destruction could be saved. So this is how every woman and every husband should behave with each other. Try to understand, console each other. If you read through the portion that is given here, how she admires, how she adores David is what we read in the following verses. She fell at his feet and said, "My Lord, let the blame be on me alone. Please let your servant speak to you. Hear what your servant has to say." How humbly she goes to this person. So this is how we learn from these passages from the Bible, that when two people live together, we should learn to understand each other's emotions. We should always think of the background from which they have come and try to understand and behave in such a way that there will be humility in our hearts to go and build together and to stop any destruction that can take place. So this is what is very important in each one of your lives. You have to understand the other person. Not being perfect is not important. That is not life. Touching the other person's heart, being a blessing to the other person is more an enriched